Hi, everyone, and welcome to the CPE Webcast, Ask Ryan Lazanis Anything. Tax season might be in the rearview mirror, but for many firm owners, the sprint never ends. If you feel like your firm is running you instead of the other way around, it'll soon be time to ask Ryan your questions. My name is Jason Bramwell, Senior Staff Writer for CPA Practice Advisor, and I'll be your host for today's webcast. This 15-minute CPE session is brought to you by CPAPracticeAdvisor.com and Canopy, which offers a fully integrated practice management solution that includes client management, document management, workflow, time and billing, engagements and proposals, and more. Before I hand things off to Ryan and Luke, who's at AICPA Engage in Las Vegas, let me explain how you can earn CPE credit on this webcast. The webcast is 50 minutes long and qualifies for one CPE credit in the field of business management and organization. If you want to claim CPE credit, you must stay with us for the entire webcast. During the webcast, we will display 4 polling questions. In each poll, you need to record an answer. This is our verification that you are still engaged with the webcast. After the event, you will be presented with a post-event survey evaluation form. Your CPE certificate will be sent to the email address you used to register. During the CPE session, you can ask questions in the field on your screen, and our speakers will try to get to as many questions as possible during the presentation. Questions not answered will be addressed by the speakers afterwards via email. Today, I'm joined by Ryan Lazanis and Luke Frye. Ryan is a CPA who founded a cloud-based firm in 2013, then started Future Firm, which provides coaching, community, and training to help accountants quickly scale a systematic firm of their own that improves their lifestyle. Ryan currently educates more than 10,000 firm leaders globally via his free weekly newsletter and coaches hundreds of successful accounting firms through his Future Firm Accelerate online coaching program. Luke is also a CPA and is the accountant in residence at Canopy. And I think we're ready to begin. The floor is yours, Ryan and Luke.
Awesome. Welcome, everyone. We're excited to have you and excited for all the questions we already have in the shoot here to ask Ryan anything. And as we're going through, we'd love to hear more questions from you. And while we're doing that, it's always really interesting to me to hear where you're all located. So if you want to go to that comment box and it'll send it just to us where you're located. We'd love to kind of just have an idea. Ryan's in Montreal. I was in Canada for about 10 years until recently when I got this great opportunity to work with Canopy in Salt Lake. And that's really part of what I find so exciting about this conversation. I've followed Ryan for probably as long as he's been doing this and have admired how he's approached tech, coaching, firms, building and scaling. So we're going to jump into some questions. But Ryan, I don't know if you want to say anything before we kind of dive in.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to be chatting with you here, Luke, and everyone else that's joining us. And I probably don't have weather that's as hot as you at the moment. I'm sure you're having a great time over there in Vegas. And I'm just really looking forward to our chat today. And hopefully this is an opportunity for all of you joining to get to pick my brain. And if you have questions or if you're going through a certain challenge or, struggling with something in your firm, this is an opportunity to get some perspective on your issue and hopefully some direction. My personal experience comes from running my own firm. I started one of the earlier cloud firms in North America back in 2013. And I struggled mightily for the first couple of years trying to figure it all out because it was my first business and I had absolutely no clue what I was doing when it came to pricing and packaging and sales and marketing and hiring people and managing people and building out the technology side of things and the processes. So I made all the mistakes possible. I've seen it all. And I was able to scale that up, successfully exit the firm 5 years after starting it from scratch. And now with Future Firm, I get the opportunity to coach tons of great firms from around the world and help them avoid costly pitfalls and expensive mistakes and stressful situations. So use this as an opportunity to pick my brain and throw your hardest questions my way. We do have some questions that were submitted, so we're going to start with those. But Luke, I'll let you kind of guide the discussion from here.
I love it. Well, what's particularly fun is I was basically doing the same thing, just at Bench with a venture-backed company, right? And it's oftentimes interesting to compare and contrast what, startup companies call bootstrapping, or maybe like running a real business versus a venture-backed accounting firm or practice. So it's really interesting on the build versus buy kind of stuff. And so I know we'll have lots of insights there. And I'm seeing where all of you are from. I saw some Arizona, Iowa, Ontario. So I'm excited for all of that. And so we'll dive in. The first section is really the biggest section on technology, automation, and AI implementation. So tons of questions here. And the first one I think will resonate a lot for some of those just getting started, or maybe those sole practitioners. Ryan, what would you say to somebody who says, I'm too small to buy high-tech solutions and I'm too busy to handle the day-to-day load? How can I get high-tech solutions at an affordable price?
So there's a lot to unpack there, right? So it's like, you're not too small for any of this high-tech stuff. It's very accessible, right? Like we have I don't think it's ever been more accessible at a cheaper price at any time in our life, right? Like all these AI tools and things of this nature, like it's pretty inexpensive and some of them are actually free. So I think that's the first thing is it's super accessible. The other thing is too busy to handle the day-to-day load. That's probably the bigger challenge, right? Because we have so many distractions. We have so many things flying in our face where, the type of firms that I'm typically seeing are like, they're a sole owner. They might even be running a solo firm, might just be them in the firm, might be a couple other people in the firm. And they don't really know where to start, right? So we hear like Claude, and we hear ChatGPT, and then we hear Gemini, and then we hear this tool, we hear that tool, and there's some overwhelm that develops there, right? So I think ultimately it comes down to understanding that we can't do it all. There's a lot of things on our list that we want to accomplish. There's a lot of things that we want to try, but we really need to get focused because we're inundated with information. We're inundated with new tools. And really it comes down to just prioritizing where we want to place our time and what the big levers are. And, sometimes that means taking a step back from the business because we're too deep in it and understanding where's the big challenge, where's the big constraint at the moment, and then solving for that constraint rather than getting distracted with all these things that are flying in our face. So I think that's the big thing that I would focus on. You're not too small to buy high-tech solutions. And there's plenty of high-tech stuff out there at an affordable price, but we're too busy to do it all. And that's really where I would focus. The solution to the problem lies in focus.
Mm. You mentioned something else in there about some of these free tools out there. Is it safe to use free AI tools, or is there a lot of risk involved with that sort of a thing?
Excuse me. So I'm definitely not a security expert, but the consensus is that it's less safe to use those free AI tools than the paid versions, specifically because we're dealing with sensitive data, right? And we don't want to we want to be cognizant of what we load into the AI tool, right? If you're loading in all of your clients' sensitive information and then the AI models are training, the tool, the company is training its AI models based on what you are providing to it, then that information could get out. But the consensus seems to be that there are certain plans, typically the more premium plans, like the team plans or even the enterprise plans on ChatGPT or the similar competitors. And the team plan, I think I pay $20 a month per member per seat. So it's not that's not inaccessible, So that provides certain guardrails about the AI model, the AI companies not training their model based on that data. And that's explicitly in their terms of service agreement. So yes, there are free tools, buyer beware on those. But that's a good question, Luke, that if we are using the free AI tools, be aware of what you're loading into it.
So more general type of data or general workflow process stuff, we could probably go with a free tool. But once it gets down to personally identifiable information, we need to be extra cautious with what's
Correct.
involved.
We anonymize the data if we need to, if we're using a free tool. But consider the efficiency gains that we get. we're talking $20 a month here for getting like, crazy, like an amazing tool that gives us crazy amounts of efficiency. So sometimes it's not worth it to nickel and dime.
Right. So the other question closely related to this is, say you have a brand new firm with 0 clients, and I'm trying to figure out how to automate bookkeeping, I guess, or build my bookkeeping practice. And the question that came in is, where do I begin? Do I start with a bookkeeping tool, a billing tool, a marketing tool? Where would you start?
I often see this where we have, more times than I can remember, a new firm owner reaching out to me saying, I'm starting this new firm. I don't have any clients yet, and I need all the tools and tech stack and processes in place. And honestly, probably don't even need anything in place at that point in time. You probably just need a couple clients. And like, even if you're doing it in the most manual ways possible for those couple clients, there's not a whole lot of efficiency we're trying to gain at that stage of the game. We're just trying to get started. We're just trying to get clients in the door. And the focus is get clients in the door. If you need to do it on a spreadsheet, that's fine to start. We don't want to do it like that long term. But your processes that you think you should have in place and the tech that you think you should have in place when you have nothing in place at the moment, it's probably going to change 6 months from then. So just start, pick up a couple clients. What I often say is, don't worry too much about the tools. Have 1 or 2 key pieces of technology if you need to. I'm a big fan of a practice management software, but truthfully, you don't need that if you have 0 clients or even 1 or 2 clients. But really just begin with where I coach firm owners to begin is get comfortable with putting good packages in place at a good price and being able to land your initial clients on decent prices. Just get them in the door and get the work going, and the processes and tech will follow from there.
Guys, can I jump in with the first survey question?
Let's do it.
All right. First survey question is, how many different software solutions do you use to manage your day-to-day work? Tasks and workflows, document collection, client portal, billing, invoices, proposals, etc. A is I can count them on 1 hand. B is I can count them on 2 hands. And C is I need more hands.
I'm curious to see these results. I don't know if we get to see these results or not. Do we, Luke?
Yes. Over in the surveys tab, you should be able to see the answers. And I think Jason will push them through.
Right now, the winner with 52.4% is A, I can count them on 1 hand, followed by 32%, I can count them on 2 hands. In the rear is I need more hands at almost 14%.
Yeah, that's a super common situation, right? We find a specific problem and then we solve for that. Then we find another problem, solve for that. And all of a sudden you have 10 or 12 or 15 tools. And that's something that, Canopy really helps solve. You have your billing, payments, invoices, engagements, workflows all in one place. But as Ryan said, at the beginning, practice management systems are overkill. But there comes a point where you want to make a decision on one and implement it before it becomes too overwhelming or too cumbersome to add in there. So some really interesting insights here.
Yeah, and I do think, and I'm not just saying this because this is a Canopy sponsored webinar, but I do think the practice management tool is like the most important piece of tech that you need in your firm.
Absolutely. All right. Are we all voted in here on this question? Get your last minute answers in if you haven't submitted.
We're good to go.
Awesome. Do you need to send those to the audience or?
Yeah, we can handle that.
Okay, super. All right. Well, let's just continue down this thread of, it used to be challenging to evaluate a tech stack, and now we're evaluating tech stacks with AI, right? So what sort of frameworks or tools would you recommend, Ryan, as far as somebody has a problem with tracking work? how would you suggest like an objective, repeatable process to evaluate a tech stack? What sort of considerations would you tell people to take a look at?
I think the first thing is, like, I look back to like when I ran my firm and when I had to choose, let's say, a practice management software. And then I started demoing. Okay, there's this one, there's that one, there's this one. And you start to lose sight of what's actually important, because there's a lot of good options out there, and they have come with a lot of different features. And what I did that was very helpful for me, and I'm not sure this is like a repeatable like checklist, but what I did was I took a step back and I just said, what do I really need from this tool? And what do I want? So I wrote down like my needs and my wants. And that kind of forms the basis for whenever I'm picking any kind of software tool now, is what do I need this thing to do? What is not working at the firm at the moment? And what do I need this tool to solve? And then what are like the nice bells and whistles to have? What are like some things that would be nice to have, but would not be make or break decision if it didn't have it? So that's kind of how I approach it, is like we take a step back and we just kind of assess, again, needs and wants, and that drives, and then I make sure that the tool checks all the boxes on the needs side of things, and that will make me comfortable moving forward.
And something I would encourage people to do is speak to more than one vendor, right? It's really easy to get excited with one. Having sold software to accountants, I love it when I don't have competition, but at the same time, it makes a more informed buyer. So if you're evaluating a practice management solution, of course, I think Canopy is the best solution because it's more fully featured than most of those out there. But if you're looking at any other automation tool or marketing tool or anything, it's good to get a few different perspectives of what's out there in the market by taking those demos. It does take time. It's going to require some attention, but you'll be more informed and happier with your choice. All right. Well, let's switch more into some specific client management and workflow bottleneck questions. So there's a lot of daily friction pain points of managing client behavior, specifically around document collection and transitioning away from less profitable legacy clients. So here's one that I've struggled with when I had my tax practice, because I had an office with clients next to me, and they would drop paperwork off to me. Mm-hmm. I had a client portal. I told them this is how it works, but they would just come drop it off. And when I told them they had to just scan it and send it to me, they thought that I was cursing at them. So I guess in your experience, Ryan, how do you manage people who don't follow the rules? Because we made rules and procedures.
So I want to know, did you get around that? Did you find a way around that, or was that a constant battle for you?
I think with that one, I said, okay, fine, I will take them this time, but moving forward, you're responsible for scanning these and sending them. Like, we didn't have file cabinets, we didn't have paper. I will do it right now because it was unclear upfront in our engagement, but long-term, if you want to work with us, it's through the portal.
I like that. That's a good approach. I do that sometimes when there's like out of scope situations happening, where sometimes you give a little bit of a gimme and then you just kind of state what it is going forward. So, we have to be reasonable. Like, if we haven't set the expectations and they're used to doing things in a certain way, like, we have to be reasonable with the client as well, right? One thing that I like to do is, I'm a really big proponent of like using pricing and packaging as a lever to control behavior. Okay. We want the client to do this, but they might want to do that. So how could we have packages in place that allow them to kind of self-select into what we want them to do? Like, I'll give you an example. I'm a really, really big proponent of the 3-tiered packaging approach, right? You have a gold package, you have a silver package, and you have a bronze package. The gold package is the most premium package, and it includes ability to drop papers off at your office. The silver and bronze package is the only option is digital only submission. The gold package we price much, much higher than the silver and bronze packages. So naturally, you're going to get the vast majority of your clients self-selecting into silver and bronze, where the minority would self-select into gold. So that's one simple example is you're not saying, no, I can't do it. You're just saying, I can do it, but it's at this price point. The other option is this. I was coaching a firm that had hundreds of legacy tax clients. And she wanted to move to a different model. She wanted to move more remote. All these clients would come to the office. They'd all drop off papers. It was super inefficient. And her approach was, we're just not working like that anymore. And she just had to drop a chunk of those clients. And it's a scary thing to think about, but like ultimately we build the firm that we want. We have to be intentional about building the type of firm that we want. And she just didn't want the kind of firm that she had anymore. And she built the firm that she wanted. She migrated the majority of her clients over to the process that she wanted. A chunk of clients did not come along for the ride, and that's going to be expected, which is it's a scary thing to think about. I will say that, she ended up building a super successful firm, had a successful exit, and a much higher than normal valuation on her firm. Probably partly because of the new systems and processes she put in place. It was a much more attractive firm. So there is that option as well. It's the scarier option, but if we play it right, usually it will work in our favor.
Yeah, part of what you're saying is if you say no to a certain type of client, you're saying yes to another. And those yeses have a network, and then you become known maybe as a jerk to those people you said no to, but they actually spread your message for you too. Oh, they only work online. They only work in this way. And then all of a sudden they're spreading the word about how you work, which is working in your favor.
I have not thought about it that way, but yeah, and like obviously we want to go through this like very respectfully, right? And we sometimes it's just having like a heart to heart with the client, say, look, this is just the way we're working now, like business owner to business owner. This is just the direction we're taking things, and if we can help them find a place to land, like if we have referrals to make, because there's plenty of other firms that would want that kind of client, perhaps, so. Yeah, those are like I'm very intentional about how I build businesses and what I recommend. And, we have to build the kind of firm that we want. And if we don't want those clients, we should not be taking them on. We should not be continuing with them. And we should be finding ways to migrate it over.
Yeah, absolutely. So as it relates to document collection, I see this as one of the biggest hurdles, right? Getting the stuff you need. And then we really smart accountants pick these really fancy, great software tools to send automated reminders. And so the automated reminders start to get ignored. Like I ignore automated reminders. And so I guess what is some of the framing or strategies and tactics you mentioned, one around pricing, that we can get people to stop WhatsApping us documents or to get us the documents in the right time? Have you seen any other tips or tricks on that kind of workflow?
Yeah, I mean, let's put it like this. If you have a client that's like 3 years late on doing their books and taxes, like chances are it's like they don't prioritize this aspect of the business whatsoever, and constantly pinging them like, we need this document. Like there's a certain personality trait that goes into this, right? And you're going to get some clients where there is some urgency and they understand that why we need this to happen. And there's certain clients that no matter what you do, you could turn on an automation feature that pings them 1 million times. They're still not going to give you that document. So then it comes down to, is there something in the sales process that could weed out the ones that are just never going to listen? And that's what we did. Like when I ran my firm Zen Accounting, it's like we had little tests in our sales process where it's like, back then we were an early cloud firm. So like one of the ways that we had to work with our clients was online. Everybody works online now, so it's not a big deal. But back then there was no Zoom. We did everything on Skype, and we had, even if you were just down the street, we had to meet on Skype for all of our meetings, even the initial meeting. So in the sales process, we had them book the meeting through Skype. And for those that said, oh no, like I need to, and we had them like fill out a little form like before the meeting. And like the ones that pushed back or the ones that didn't do it, like or the ones that wanted to meet in person, like they failed the test and we didn't proceed with them. So are there these little tests that don't add a ton of friction to the process that could weed out the ones that are just going to give you trouble? I think that's the best thing we can do, because otherwise we have to change their personality, which is not going to happen. We have to change their behavior. And that's a very difficult thing to do because, these are very busy people, just like all of us here. And there's some people that just don't prioritize that aspect of the business as much as they should. So it's really about attracting the type of personalities we want into the firm.
Mm. Yeah, you said a word that gets me really excited that terrifies a lot of other accountants, sales. And so I would love maybe for you to share a little bit about maybe a mindset shift that accountants or new business owners have to make in how they think of bringing on clients, right? Because even if you don't like the word sales or don't like the idea of a used car salesman, bugging you, if you get clients, you're doing sales.
Yeah. And I identify with that because I'm probably one of the idea, even when I started my firm, my hands would shake getting onto sales calls. I'm super introverted. I'd rather be doing my own thing, speaking in front of audiences. You might not be able to tell, but it's not my thing. Right. So I had to get comfortable with sales, and we cannot have a successful business if we don't know how to sell. We just can't. Right. So, ultimately the way I look at sales is figuring out how we can help somebody, because that's all we're trying to do. Right. It's I need to understand this person to see how I could bring them from point A to point B and then just propose the solution that helps them get there. That's how I look at sales. I don't have any closing tactics for you or closing tricks. I'm just trying to see, can I help you? Right? Where are you now? And where do you want to get to? And can my service offer help you get there? That's all I'm trying to do. But I'm not a natural born salesman. There's a reason why I like 3 tiers instead of 1 tier, because it's a little bit more gentle, where it's not like a take it or leave it type approach. So there's some frameworks you can use to get better at sales. But ultimately, the way I look at it is, how can we help this person succeed? And if I believe I can help them succeed, there's some conviction in it, and it makes it easier to land the deal.
That's Guys, great. Can I jump in with the second question?
Yeah, absolutely.
The second question is, it's AI related. How do you feel about using AI in your practice? A, I'm all in and already testing it out. B, I'm cautiously curious and taking it slow. C, I'm interested but don't know where to start. And D, I'm skeptical and worried about the risks.
Brings up something. Go ahead, Ryan.
And that was a good question as well, Luke, because I know there's a lot of people that they don't like sales. And one thing that we have been doing lately with some of with some of our coaching students is just having if you could record a great AI tool is like a Fireflies or something like that just records your calls, and just take the sales call transcripts and have AI analyze it and see where you're strong and weak. That's a big unlock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now a relatively new feature at Canopy, we actually have a call recorder built in. So if you're a Canopy user, cool. I think it may still be under experimental features. So settings, experimental features, get that turned on. Automatically connects it to your client record, and like Ryan's saying, you can use Canopy a Coworker AI to evaluate how you did. Some of these methodologies, if you want to go deeper, would be like BANT or MEDIC. There's several more. But I think being consistent and trying to optimize around one methodology is really how you're going to be successful.
I should not be surprised that feature is being released in Canopy. I should have known before I said something.
It's great. No, that's the wonderful thing about Canopy, just continuing to add and evolve and listening to our customers. So it looks like we have some results here.
Yeah, if you're real quick. The cautiously curious and taking it slow is up almost 35%, followed by I'm all in and already testing it out at 27%. So yeah, it's good showing.
Yeah, what I'm seeing here, only 10% say I'm skeptical and worried about the risks. That's a bit surprising to me, because in my previous conversations and webinars, people are even more hesitant to embrace AI. So I'm glad to see that people are, testing the waters, because I think that's just the world we live in. You got to give it a shot and see how it might be able to up-level your firm.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's talk now about pricing, billing, and profitability metrics. This is particularly interesting because I just chatted with Ron Baker yesterday. If you guys don't know Ron Baker, I highly encourage you look him up. He has a new book out called Time's Up, and like the end of the billable hour, which I'm a pretty big fan of, in part because I could never hack it in public accounting, and tracking 6-minute or 15-minute intervals I thought was a total waste of time. So the question is, I'll keep it more general. How do you track capacity and project or client profitability without having our team track time? In this person's example, they do bill on a flat rate. So how would you go about that?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I have to say, like, whatever I learned about pricing, I've learned from Ron. So he was a big influence. And that was the book that kind of changed my entire perspective on how we value ourselves and how we price the work. So that was probably the most important book I read when I was implementing value pricing. That was the most important book I read when I was running a firm. So capacity planning. So my firm did not have timesheets. Okay. We're a very profitable firm. We never had timesheets from day one. We're a team of around 15, and, we successfully exited. So you can run a good firm without timesheets. I don't care if you use timesheets or don't use timesheets. I don't care what direction you take. But if you don't use timesheets, and even if you do use timesheets, the tool that was very important for us, and I could not have run the firm without it, was capacity planning, because we're constantly adding clients, and we needed to know, are we biting off more than we can chew? Like, look at all the firms that I encounter, like when they start the coaching with us, is they're overwhelmed, right? They've bit off more they can chew. And we need to solve the capacity problem. One of the ways that you do that is through capacity planning, making sure that what you've committed to in terms of work, you have the available capacity to deliver that work. And while we did not do timesheets, we did estimate time. So all tasks in our system had a time estimate. Now, it's not super precise, but we have an idea of like 100, transactions per month for bookkeeping is going to be around, let's say, 10 hours a month, 8 hours a month. Put a time estimate on it, and then forecast that out across all tasks. All tasks would be assigned to an individual on the team. And then you can compare your available capacity to your to what's been committed to at a client basis. We did that on a month-by-month basis to see if there was a shortfall, a capacity shortfall. We'd be able to forecast things out, and we can spot like capacity crunches months before they happen. And that's when we want to hire somebody. We don't want to hire someone when we're already underwater, because it's too late, and we need to break that cycle. We need to have excess capacity so that we can fill up that capacity and properly onboard a new team member, and it will take them at least 3 months to get on board, right? So if it takes a couple months to hire someone and a couple months to get them on board, we're looking at probably 6 months before they're fully functional. So I want to make sure I have a tool in place that allows me, like, from a long-term horizon, to see where my capacity crunch is and where I need to make that next hire.
So this is a sort of a 3-part question, but I think they'll all thread together here. As you're considering hiring, Bench, for example, hired in Canada. So that was one way to sort of offshore without offshoring. And now we have a ton of different offshoring options. I spoke to a firm who fired all their offshore people in replace it with AI. And so one of the questions that we have here is, do you see AI completely taking away entry-level CPA jobs? And then as a component, what's your opinion on, outsourcing to the Philippines or India or something like that?
It's a good question. I don't have a crystal ball, but I mean, I could already see that there's some firms out there that are using AI in interesting ways to replace certain tasks that an individual would be doing. Now, is it going to completely replace someone? Like, I have some firms that say, yeah, they are completely replacing some people. So there are firms that are saying that. I think there's certainly tasks that AI will completely replace or are already completely replacing. But we still need humans. And whether it's offshore or onshore, I don't have a preference. Like, I have a completely offshore team. I'm the only person in Canada. We have someone in the US, we have someone in Panama, and the majority of our team is in the Philippines. And I like that kind of model. I like the different perspectives we get from around the world. And, there are some cost advantages as well if you're offshoring to places like the Philippines. But I'm not solely focused on cost savings. I'm looking at, like, where could we tap into talent, right? Like, we have someone in the US that comes at a premium because our exchange rate in Canada is not super great. But, at the end of the day, I'm just looking, can we have, I'm not looking to, like, cut costs on every single person. I'm looking at, can we have a profitable business, and can we get talent where we need to get it in the easiest way way possible? That's how I kind of look at it.
Right. And I think what I appreciate about your perspective here is it's really tempting, especially if you're working with a coach or advisor or someone who's done it before. Like, just because it worked a certain way for you or me doesn't mean it will for these firms, right? I think getting really clear on your vision and your values, and that helps align how to make your decisions on who to hire, what to hire, how to hire, and so on.
That's the most important thing. And that's the exercise that we go through, is like, what are we creating here? What do you want to create? And what do you want your life to look like? And if we create this kind of firm, like, is it going to give you the kind of life you want? And once we know what we want to create, what is the team that's needed to support that? And it is tempting to think about, we can save all these costs just by using AI to eliminate people. But I'll remind you that what's going to be more important than the efficiencies we get from AI is just how human we can be with our clients, because your clients don't want to deal with a robot. If you look at your client portfolio, is there any one of those clients that would want to deal with a robot? And probably the answer is no, right? Like, they want to deal with a human, and they want a warm experience. And I can point back to my experience. Like, I'm a CPA that ran my own firm, but I don't do my own books. I don't do my own taxes. I don't do any of that. I had hired a very well-known firm in Canada, and the people that run it I would consider friends, but they were too focused on automation at the time. And it was a very cold, robotic feeling onboarding, and I just could never get over that. And I wanted that warmth. I wanted someone that understood me, that knew me, where I felt like there was a trust between us. And I just never had that. And it all started with a very automated, cold, robotic onboarding process. And that's what we have to keep in mind, is we are building a firm that is going to provide a warm, trusting experience to our clients. And if you think you're going to eliminate all the people and replace it with AI and your clients are going to like that, that's not the case.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about there is bedside manner, right? We are still human, and these tools we have to automate some of this work are amazing, and it gives you the capacity to be more human. And that's my hypothesis. I
agree with that. I think, like, we can use them to be more human if we are intentional about that, but if we are not, we're going to go in the opposite direction.
That's right. Yeah. Should we do another poll question?
Yeah, I was going to ask if I could jump in. I appreciate it. The third poll question is, what operational headache are you most interested in fixing? Is it A, chasing down documents and getting clients to use the portal? B, finding good talent, whether local CPAs or overseas help, as we were talking about? Replacing low-margin clients with more profitable ones? And D, streamlining my tech stack to improve productivity and profitability. Replacing low margin clients has jumped out to a big lead so far.
Huge.
Wow.
67%.
I was going to take another guess at what was going to be coming out on top, actually.
Yeah, well, finding good talent has jumped to the lead with 33%.
Wow. I'm glad to see chasing documents is lower than the other two, but it's still pretty high up there at 20%.
Yeah, it's something that drives people crazy, I guess.
It's probably more emotional. Very good. Well, I can't believe we're already winding down our last little bit here, but so many questions I want to keep asking. I'll try and stay on track here within the vein of firm growth, scaling, and market strategy. I've heard a lot of these myths. I think there's a lot of mythology out there right now of, like the one person, $1 million firm is a great example, right? Does it exist? Is this a Loch Ness monster? Is this Sasquatch out in the woods? Or does it really, and what does that really mean? So the question that was asked is, how do you add $1 million of revenue to your firm? I mean, it's obviously pretty open-ended, but I guess if you had a firm that was maybe doing 500,000, how would you add $1 million as soon as possible?
I mean, the answer for the most part for me comes down to how we're using our pricing as the lever. Because the way that most firms are going about it is they need the volume, right? They need lots of clients. And we're going to get all these couple thousand here, 5,000 here, 4,000 here. We need a lot of clients to get to that. And then it gets super operationally heavy. And like when we're dealing with those lower price clients, typically speaking, our margins aren't well supported that allow us to go get the help that we need to dig us out, right? So it's not uncommon that I see firms at $500,000 or $700,000 and they're like completely buried. They have no margin. They have no cash flow. And it all points back to price. Price is the lever. So if we're at $500,000, I would look at your current client portfolio first. And I would look at, okay, you want to add $1 million in revenue. So I would look at your current client portfolio first. You have a lot of C and D clients, and you probably have a lot of A and B clients that are underpriced. So we need to optimize that mix, right? We need to eliminate the C and D clients that are dragging you down from a profitability standpoint, or reprice them. And the A and B clients are probably we need to reprice them as well, and that's going to be the easiest way to get revenues up. Then from there, we need new clients. And I want to find ways for how we could how can we pick up more of those $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 clients? Because we're going to need less volume, less stress on the marketing. Building out, if you have no marketing presence right now, to build out like a digital marketing channel today, I'm a big proponent of it, but it's not going to happen in a month or two. It's going to take a good year of consistent effort. And that means typically the firm owner is the one that has to drive that. And if you're doing YouTube videos or social media or that kind of stuff, there's consistent effort. And if the firm owner does not have interest there, then we need to find other channels. And the other channels, we're not going to be getting 15, 20 new clients a month. We have to go look at more traditional channels like networking, or we have to build partnerships, kind of like how I'm getting exposure in this webinar through Canopy's audience, right? So, but it all points back to pricing, because you're going to make your life much more difficult than it needs to be to add that $1 million in revenue if we have suboptimal pricing with poor margins. So we need to find ways to get the pricing up, and we get the pricing up by having better packages, more compelling offers, and a stronger sales process to convert the leads that are coming through onto those new packages and pricing.
Yeah, it does come down to pricing. And so often in the sales process, we want to win the deal so badly that we discount it. That's our first go-to. Yeah. I'm just going to discount it to win the deal. But the irony here for me is we're accountants. We understand what gross margin means. Like $1 discount is a huge percentage on your margin. Or
Huge.
maybe at $100, yeah.
But I think what was interesting with me is, although I'm a CPA, I'm a terrible accountant. And I was really happy, like when I left the firm, I was like, you know what? Like, I'm never going to have to look at a financial statement again. And when I started coaching, I realized I got to look at your financial statements to actually help you out, because you're not looking at them yourself, right? They're not looking at their own margins. I mean, it's often like, we advise clients on certain things, but we don't really implement it ourselves. But like, that's one example where we're advising clients on how to improve cash flow, how to improve margin, but the firm is not taking that own advice for themselves. So, but yeah, that is the biggest lever you can pull to bring in that additional revenue.
Yeah, the cobbler's shoes, or the doctor who smokes, for sure. Awesome. Okay, one more question on this section, and I have an opinion here. I'm curious to hear if it's the same. If you're at a point where you need to hire, but you don't have enough cash to hire, what would you change, or what would you indicate is the problem here?
Well, it kind of goes back to what we were just saying. Is that's why, I deal with a lot of firms where the owner is the bottleneck, and they're the bottleneck because they're doing too much, and they need a person to alleviate that bottleneck, but they don't have the margin to bring on that person, which means we need to fix the pricing first to bring up the profitability and fix the clients that are dragging them down, and then we can hire that person. Or the alternative is, but then we're just masking up some of the problems that we have already, but like, go offshore. If you have some funds, but perhaps not the funds available to hire what you need onshore, then you could look offshore. If that, like, some people are okay with that, and some people say, you know what, I just don't want offshore. And that's a personal decision.
The other angle I've experimented with is prepayments, either prepayment or catch-up payment if you're billing up front, right? So we're turning it around from, rather than we're financing the client's work, we're getting paid up front for, even a tax return, a 2026 tax return. If I had a tax practice today, I would bill you 50% of the fee for that return today if I had a monthly subscription, and the remainder 6 months over the next periods. So that could be
that's a very good point. Yeah, it's a very good point. So in our firm, what we did is just 100% upfront. Like, if it's a monthly thing, it's just the first of the month, and we'd have like that automated. But if it's like an upfront thing, like if it's like a once-off project, it's here's the price, pay it, and then we will start. That's the way that we did it.
Yeah, so much more control.
That's a good point about when it comes to cash flow, looking at how you actually collect payment.
Absolutely. Okay, maybe it's time for our last poll question.
It is. What's on the horizon for your firm? Is it A, scale it up, I want to grow revenue and expand my team? B, optimize it, I want to keep it small, but make it way more efficient? C, exit strategy, I'm looking to sell, merge, or roll up soon? And D, survival mode, I'm just trying to make it through the next tax season.
Yeah, this sort of goes back to what we've talked about on just the vision you have for your firm, and, some of your values as it relates to what you want out of the firm. And, when we say what you want out of the firm, we're really saying, what kind of life do you want to have? And, how important is money? How important is a big chunk of money? How important is doing good in your community or in your whatever corner of the internet you may live?
And that is the first step for sure.
Looks like people are planning to optimize their firm in the future, followed by they want to scale it up, want to grow their revenue, and expand their team. Those are the top two.
That's great. So 10%, 11% showing exit strategy, looking to sell, merge, or roll up soon. And then thankfully, the least responded was survival mode. That's
That's good.
if you're in that, you should probably hire someone like Ryan to help you work through that. Survival mindset is a choice, and it's driven by fear, and you don't have to live that way. You really don't. Okay, well, that ties in pretty well to our last section we have here. So I think we're at the 50-minute mark, but we've still got 10 more minutes to chat here, and we'll make sure to jump into some of your other questions here. But interesting question on, how to remove yourself from working in the business if you want to work on the business. The question is, how do I get out of my practice? I keep telling them I am done. Then an issue arises. I'm assuming this is staff, and I'm pulled back in. I am old and tired. I think a lot of us could relate to that, even if we're not that old.
So, I mean, largely it's going to come down to having the right people on the team. That's what it comes down to. Like when we have a bottleneck, a person or group of people is there to alleviate the bottleneck. And we need to have there's a long answer here and the short answer, but usually what's happening is we don't have enough senior people on the team that can buffer us from the day-to-day. And we haven't set the right expectations at a team member level about what they're accountable to, actually what they should be accountable for achieving. So I don't know how much we want to expand on that, but it comes down to alleviating a bottleneck comes down to having the right people.
So interesting, you didn't mention investing more in training. How would you balance training and onboarding with just having the right person?
Yeah, I think like it's a multifaceted thing, right? It's not like, we want to identify what that team structure looks like. So what our organizational chart looks like so that we're installing the right people to alleviate the bottleneck. And then, as you mentioned, we want to bring them on, properly train them, properly onboard them. So it doesn't take a year to get them on board. It takes, 3 months, realistically speaking. And then we also want to define expectations. And that's one thing I find a lot of firm owners do is like the work, they hire someone for a certain something and the work keeps coming back to them. And how could we keep the work with the person that should be doing the work? And that comes down to documenting expectations. And that's something I find that's typically lacking at most firms.
And I think one of the easiest jobs for AI to help us with, right? So if we're recording our calls with our clients, we're recording calls internally, and then we're isolating that all to like types of work that needs to be done. It can automatically generate some sort of a chatbot or SOP or whatever it is that updates in real time live. So rather than just fixing it for the person, or rather than doing a one-off thing, loop in some sort of a recording, update an SOP, update your firm brain, whatever it is, to be able to say, did you check the SOP? Did you check the AI? Maybe you created Gem or a GPT or whatever AI tool you're using as a prompt for, this is how we do month-end close when we have GST or sales tax in New York, that sort of a thing.
Yeah, I think that's good. And I think like all of these, we need all of these things together for people to be working well as a team, meshing well together. Like it's multifaceted for sure.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to jump into some of the questions we got live here. Some of them we actually answered as we went here. One of them is kind of going back to how you mentioned capacity tracking, on how you rely on team members to give you an accurate estimate of how long a task will take. There's an opportunity to say something will take longer than it did, so maybe sandbagging. How could you manage around that?
I think the person that made the sale should be the one that assesses the scope and the time estimates rather than the actual individual team member. Because the person that made the sale has the most information available to understand what needs to get done and how it needs to get done. And they should be the one that's assigning the time estimates.
Got it. And When it comes to outsourcing to the Philippines or India, what functions are you outsourcing? And maybe how did you choose the Philippines over India?
You could choose, there's any function. You could outsource any single function. I chose Philippines because I heard it had a good reputation, and I just started in the Philippines. They have good the accounting degrees that the accounting education they go through there is apparently quite strong. So that's a pro on the accounting side of things. The English is very good, it was something that it just at the time it seemed like a good place to experiment with. And I ran the experiment and it worked out very well, and just started hiring people there. And we've done like a couple team retreats over there, and they're part of the team, right? Just because they're on the other side of the world doesn't mean they're treated any differently than people on this side of the world. So, and we've been very happy with that. We've been very happy with our decision.
And what about hiring interns? I always thought, going back to my alma mater and getting some interns and helping them get real world experience could be interesting. Have you experimented with that? And what was the result?
I have not. I have zero experience there, truthfully. So I don't have much feedback to provide.
Love it. Yeah. I mean, at that point you became a lot more of a training school, which could be a pretty big burden.
That's kind of what came to mind.
Awesome. Well, I think we got through most everyone's questions. I know there are more. We'll definitely follow up with you. This is a really great conversation, Ryan. I hope that you all got something of benefit out of here. And, thank you for being here. And I think Ryan, if you have any final closing words, happy to have you take that.
No, I mean, I think you guided the conversation very well. So thank you for moderating, Luke, and thank you to Canopy for inviting me on. And hopefully there was some value I was able to provide in the session for all of you that attended. And that's it. I really do appreciate it.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I'll turn it over to you, Jason, for the final steps here.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. And thanks to you all for attending this informative discussion. And also a big thank you to Canopy for sponsoring this topic for CPE credit. Visit getcanopy.com for more information. For participating in today's event, you will receive your CPE certificate in your email, but please be sure to check your spam folder. Should you have any questions about CPE, please contact us at editor@cpapracticeadvisor.com. We also have more CPE webcasts coming down the pike here. Check them out on the resources tab at cpapracticeadvisor.com. The audio in this event will end now.